They told him to step off the plane. He didn't argue. He made one call. By the time they closed the cabin door, $5 billion was gone. You ever have one of those days where all you want is peace? That was Everett Daniels on a Thursday evening in late September, flying out of Phoenix Sky Harbor. Not New York, not LA, Phoenix. That's where the last investor summit had wrapped up. He'd been on his feet for 14 hours, shaking hands, listening to pitches, making quiet decisions that would shift entire markets. Everett wasn't flashy. No entourage, no big chain around his neck, just a deep navy suit, an Apple Watch, and a weathered leather briefcase that had been through more flights than he could count. He was headed to Seattle this time, home for the weekend. His wife had texted him a picture of the kids earlier. His son, Elijah, was already asleep on the couch holding a toy lightsaber. That made him smile. He exhaled, cracked his neck, and stepped onto the plane. First class, aisle seat, 3C. As Everett sat down, he gave the kind of polite half-nod people give when they're trying to acknowledge you without starting a conversation. He didn't feel like talking. He just wanted silence, maybe a glass of sparkling water, and to review the last round of proposals before landing. He put his iPad on the tray table, opened up the slide deck marked confidential, and zoned in. The flight attendants moved about quickly. One tall guy with sandy brown hair, new, looked nervous. The other, a woman maybe in her late 30s, short bob cut, sharp red lipstick. She smiled at Everett when she offered pre-flight drinks. He accepted the water, thanked her, and went back to his screen. Then something strange happened. 10 minutes in, still waiting for the pushback from the gate, the woman came back, same smile. But this time, it didn't feel real. It was tight, rehearsed. "Mr. Daniels, is it?" she asked, already knowing the name. "We're going to need you to step off the plane for a quick security matter." He blinked, looked up slowly. "Excuse me?" he asked, not rudely, just genuinely puzzled. "It's probably nothing," she said quickly, glancing toward the cockpit. "Just a quick check. We'll get you right back on." Everett looked down at his boarding pass, then back at her. "I'm sorry. Did I trigger something on your system?" Her smile didn't falter, but the energy was different now. You could feel it. The kind of tension that doesn't shout, but simmers. "I'm not sure," she said. "I was just told to ask you to come with me." She didn't make eye contact as she said it. Everett's fingers tapped once on the screen of his iPad. Then he looked past her, row 1, 2, 3. People pretending not to watch, but they were. Some looked down. Some scrolled mindlessly on their phones. One man, 2 rows back, raised his eyebrows slightly, then went right back to reading his magazine like nothing was happening. The young man sitting next to Everett, maybe mid-20s, looked over and mumbled, "Man, that's wild," under his breath. He didn't say it to help, just wanted to feel like he said something. Everett didn't respond. Instead, he reached into his inside pocket, pulled out his phone, and glanced at it. One bar of service, enough. He scrolled to Maya HQ and tapped call. She picked up on the second ring. "Everett? Pull all our interests, everything tied to Ascend Air, effective immediately." There was a pause on the other end. She didn't ask questions. "Understood." He hung up, slipped the phone back in his pocket, and looked up at the flight attendant. "I'm ready." But Everett wasn't angry. He was focused, and what was about to happen would make the world stop pretending they hadn't seen. The aisle felt longer than it should have. Everett walked calmly, briefcase in hand, the flight attendant a half step ahead of him. No one said a word. A toddler on his mother's lap stared at him with wide eyes as he passed. A man in a tech hoodie adjusted his earbuds and turned his face to the window. Someone in business class coughed like it was a cue. No one stood up. No one asked why. No one even muttered a protest. By the time they reached the jet bridge, 2 uniformed airport security officers were waiting. Not TSA. These were from the airport's private security unit. They didn't touch him, didn't cuff him, but their hands hovered close to their belts like they'd been trained to do. "Mr. Daniels," the taller one said, "we just need to ask you a few quick questions. Can you come with us?" Everett looked at both of them, steady, calm. "Am I being detained?" he asked. One of the officers, light beard, mid-40s, reading his nameplate, R. Jenks, shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't expecting someone who knew what to ask. "Not officially," Jenks replied. "We just received a report of unusual behavior." Everett raised a single eyebrow. Unusual behavior? What kind? Jenks opened his mouth, then closed it, looked to his partner. She shook her head slightly. We were just told to make contact, she offered, clearly uncomfortable with the whole thing. Everett stood there a second longer, then took out his phone again. This time he scrolled to a different name. Who are you calling? Jenks asked. My attorney, Everett replied flatly. Jenks held up a hand. Sir, there's no need for that. There's no need for any of this, Everett said. Yet here we are. He tapped the contact, but before the call went through, the flight attendant reappeared. Sir, she said, voice lower now. We've spoken with the captain. You're cleared to reboard if you'd like. Just like that. Everett didn't move. What changed? He asked. Her eyes darted toward the security officers, then away. I think there was a misunderstanding. Everett didn't respond right away. He let that silence sit in the air like a held breath. Behind him, people inside the plane were watching again. The door was still open. So was the question. He took one step forward, leaned slightly toward her, and said quietly, Just so you know, this flight, it'll still take off. You'll still bring drinks. People will still get where they're going, but everything around this airline is about to burn. Then he turned to Officer Jenks. I'm done here. And he walked away. But while Everett left the gate behind him, the fuse he lit was already burning, and no one in that building was ready for what came next. As Everett stepped into the terminal, the fluorescent lights overhead buzzed low and cold. Gate 32C sat behind him like a sealed-off memory. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was Damon Reese, his firm's senior investment strategist. Everett answered without slowing his pace. It's done, he said simply. We just started the pull, Damon replied. I need confirmation on the secondary accounts. All of it, Everett said. Not just our funds, our partners, our subsidiaries. If they're tied to Ascend Air or its holding group, liquidate. I don't want a dime left in their ecosystem by the end of the day. Understood, Damon said. He paused. You want to issue a statement? Not yet. Everett hung up. He reached the Delta Sky Club lounge. Ascend shared a terminal with them at Sky Harbor. The receptionist started to greet him, but paused when she saw his face. Something in his walk, maybe. His expression. She didn't ask questions. Just let him through. He sat near the window overlooking the tarmac. Outside, the sun was starting to dip behind the edge of the runway. Planes crawled slowly across the pavement like giant metal insects, unaware of the storm about to hit. From this window, he could still see the tail of the plane he'd just exited. Flight 710, still delayed. He sipped the bottle of water someone had left at the table and pulled out his phone again. This time he called Victoria Tao, Chief Legal Officer for Daniels Equity Partners. She picked up immediately. We've got a situation. I need a compliance report and preemptive filing on all exits related to Ascend Air and its subsidiaries. Any legal pushback, you forward it directly to my inbox. Already started, she said. Media? I want silence for now. Let them talk first. He hung up again. That was the thing about Everett Daniels. He didn't yell. He didn't storm offices or make threats in elevators. He made moves, quiet ones that didn't make headlines until they'd already changed the conversation. 3 years ago, Daniels Equity Partners had poured close to $5 billion into infrastructure, logistics, and aviation, specifically into companies like Ascend Air, who had touted a new wave of ethical business practices and DEI initiatives. They'd paraded his name at galas, plastered photos of his team on investor decks, claimed diversity at the top to boost their own value, and now, when it counted, they let him get walked off a plane like he was a threat. No explanation, no protocol, just discomfort in a different skin. Everett looked out the window again, still delayed. Another call came in, this time from Amira, his wife. Hey, she said softly. You see it already? He asked. Someone posted a video. I didn't watch all of it. Just your voice at the end. Everett didn't speak. He didn't have to. They'll try to spin it, she said after a moment. Say you were aggressive. Say you raised your voice. They can say whatever they want, he replied. A long silence. Then she said, You okay? He closed his eyes for a second. Yeah, I just hate when Elijah has to grow up seeing this kind of thing. You didn't raise your voice, Amira said. You raised your standard. That made him smile for the first time since the gate. I'll be home by midnight, he said. But back at Ascend's headquarters, a different kind of midnight was coming, and no one was prepared for the darkness Everett had just set in motion. Ascend Air's headquarters sat on the 24th floor of a steel and glass tower in downtown San Diego. On most days, the executive wing was calm, professional, smooth running, emails, meetings, catered lunches, and investor updates. That day, it was chaos in khaki slacks and pencil skirts. At 4:11 p.m., Julian Reed, chief financial officer, was reviewing a procurement report when his assistant knocked on the door. "Julian, you're going to want to see this." She handed him her tablet. He squinted at the screen. The subject line from the email read, "Urgent. Total capital withdrawal. Daniels Equity Partners, effective immediately." Julian's lips parted slightly. "This has to be a mistake," he muttered. It wasn't. And 5 minutes later, he knew it. On the other side of the building, Cynthia Hale, the airline's CEO, was on a video call when her second phone started ringing. She ignored it. It rang again. Then her assistant burst into the room without knocking. "Cynthia, it's Everett Daniels. He's pulling everything." She froze. "What do you mean, everything?" "All funding, all partnerships, all third-party connections through his firm and their extended network. That's nearly $5 billion in holdings. Gone, just like that." Cynthia pushed away from the desk, voice sharp now. "Why?" The assistant hesitated. "It's related to a flight, Gate 32C Phoenix. He was removed for a quote-unquote security check that wasn't on record. Then he made a call." Cynthia grabbed her phone, pulled up her inbox. The subject lines coming in were like falling dominoes. Capital account closure notice. Urgent. Blackstone. Reviewing ties with Ascend. Daniels Equity Advisory Board contact. Immediate response requested. Then the real blow landed. A text message from an anonymous employee. A link. She clicked. It was grainy, filmed from a phone. A man in a suit calmly speaking to two security officers and a flight attendant. It was hard to hear until the last part. The volume spiked. "Just so you know, everything around this airline is about to burn." Then the video cut off. Her phone started buzzing non-stop. Messages from board members, investors, and PR teams across the country. This wasn't a protest. This wasn't a lawsuit. This was a controlled financial implosion. And Everett Daniels had lit the match without breaking stride. Back in the Phoenix lounge, Everett received a message. "They're spiraling. The withdrawal triggered secondary partners. You want the media to start covering now?" He stared at the screen, tapped once, typed just 2 words, "Not yet." He wanted the house to tilt first. He wanted them to feel it. Not the scandal, but the silence. The kind that swallows a company whole before the headlines ever reach the screen. Outside, his original plane was finally taxiing. He didn't care. He booked a new flight on another airline. No first class, no window seat, just a row by the engine and a few unread messages in his inbox. He didn't mind. But while he sat 30,000 feet above the ground, the brand that once leaned on his reputation for credibility was now begging for air, and no one was coming to save them. The first wave hit around 6:30 p.m. Pacific. A tweet from a woman in row 4 went viral. "Just watched a black man in a suit get asked to leave my flight with no explanation. He didn't yell, he didn't argue, just made a call and walked off. Whole thing felt wrong." Then came the replies. "Wait, is this the Everett Daniels thing? He funds half the logistics sector, doesn't he? Ascend Air is done if this is real." By 7:15, someone leaked the video. It was shot vertically, shaky hands, low audio, but the internet didn't care. It showed Everett calmly asking, "Did I trigger something on your system?" And the stiff, corporate body language of the crew failing to answer. The officers hovering near their belts. The cold pause before he delivered the sentence that hit like a freight train. "Just so you know, everything around this airline is about to burn." The hashtags started trending. Hashtag Everett Daniels. Ascend. Accountable, corporate bias. Exposed YouTubers uploaded reaction videos. Analysts broke down the stock drop, nearly 8% within 2 hours. Financial blogs went from speculation to confirmation when screenshots of the mass withdrawals surfaced. CNBC ran a segment by 8:40 p.m. titled, The power of one phone call, how Everett Daniels sank an airline without saying a word on camera. News anchors used phrases like economic protest, strategic retaliation, and corporate reckoning. Meanwhile, Everett was silent. No press release, no tweet, no video statement. People kept asking, why hasn't he spoken yet? But that was the power of it. He didn't need to. His silence was the speech. By the next morning, Ascend's call center was jammed. Passengers were canceling future flights. A group of small business investors pulled out of a joint venture deal with the airline's freight division. College students were posting videos tagging Everett, calling him a quiet icon. Black professionals across LinkedIn were quoting him under clips of the incident, using the moment to share their own silent humiliations that no one had recorded. That was the part no one could put in a report. The feeling, the familiarity, the way people didn't need context to understand exactly what had happened, even if the airline never said a word. A well-dressed black man, first class, asked to step off, vague language, silent eyes, a plane full of passengers watching and doing nothing. Everyone had seen this movie before, but this time the credits hit different, because this time the man being removed wasn't powerless, and his silence didn't mean submission. But the one person who still hadn't reached out was the one who should have done it first. And when she finally did, it was already too late. Cynthia Hale waited until 10:03 a.m. the next day to make the call. She sat alone in her corner office, blinds drawn halfway, an untouched cup of coffee on her desk. Her legal team had already cycled through 6 potential statements. None of them sounded right. None of them sounded real. She tapped Everett's number and held her breath. 2 rings. Cynthia. His voice was flat, calm, not friendly, not hostile, just finished. I wanted to speak with you directly, she said. Didn't think you would, he replied. Took you long enough. She ignored the sting. Everett, I want to first say, I'm sorry, deeply. What happened on that flight, it shouldn't have happened. Not to you, not to anyone. He didn't respond right away. She continued, we've launched an internal review. The flight crew's been suspended pending investigation. We're already making plans for bias training, auditing our protocols. You think this is about training? He said, cutting her off. Cynthia stopped. Everett continued, slow and deliberate. I spent 3 years helping position your company as forward-thinking. I put Daniels' equity behind you when no one else believed in Ascend's turnaround. We co-signed your growth. We legitimized you in circles you couldn't even pronounce. And all it took was a little discomfort for your people to treat me like I didn't belong. She didn't know what to say. Her media advisor had prepped her for anger, for demands, not this. I understand you're upset. Don't do that, he said. Don't shrink it. A pause, then softer. You ever had to calculate how polite you need to be to not be considered a threat in a space you helped build? She swallowed hard. Everett, is there any way we can fix this? No, he let the word land. Because it's not about fixing it, he said. It's about showing the people watching that we're done asking for basic dignity. That next time they think twice before letting fear dress up as protocol. Her throat tightened. This could destroy us. Everett exhaled through his nose. Not a laugh, just a reminder. You built your house on our credibility. You don't get to be surprised when we take the bricks back. Cynthia leaned forward, desperate now. Look, let us meet. Face to face, let me put something on the table, a plan, a public apology, anything. He paused. You want to post something? Fine, but not for me. Post it for every person who's been walked off a plane and didn't have $5 billion behind their name. I'll make it right, she said. No, Everett replied. You'll make it public. That's the only way this means anything. He ended the call. No yelling, no legal threat, no list of demands. Just the same quiet tone that sent her entire company into freefall. Across town, one of Ascend's board members received his own call from an investment group. They were divesting, not because of Everett, but because he hadn't said anything yet. Silence, it turned out, could speak volumes. But while Everett was done talking, the story wasn't over. Not until people understood the reason he didn't fight to stay on that plane was because he knew his worth didn't come from being allowed in. 3 days later, Everett sat on a park bench in Seattle's Green Lake Park. No cameras, no suit, just jeans, sneakers, and a hooded jacket zipped halfway up. His son, Elijah, was across the grass chasing a foam football, while Amira watched from a nearby blanket, legs tucked under her. The noise of the world hadn't died down, but Everett had chosen not to turn it up. He hadn't given an interview. He hadn't written a post. He hadn't released a statement. Still, his name was everywhere. On blogs, in headlines, on podcasts. Some people praised him. Some called him dramatic. Others said he should have just complied. That one always made him laugh. Just comply, he muttered under his breath. As if I haven't been doing that my entire life. Amira walked over and handed him a coffee. Still quiet? She asked. I'm thinking, he said. About what? How silence gets interpreted depending on who you are, he said. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. I just asked a question. And for some people, that was too much. She sat next to him. You didn't leave to protect yourself, did you? No, he said. I left because I knew who I was, and I needed them to remember it too. He sipped the coffee and watched Elijah tumble to the grass, laughing. There's a lesson in this, he said quietly. Then say it, Amira replied. So he did. That night, Everett sat at his desk and recorded a voice note. Just one take. No edits. No production. He uploaded it as an open letter. The title was simple. To the ones who are tired of explaining themselves. The message spread within hours. I wasn't kicked off that plane because of what I did. I was removed because of who they assumed I was. That's a reality many of us live every day, moving through rooms we helped build, still being asked to prove we deserve to be in them. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't even personal. It was about reminding people what power really looks like, and that it doesn't always come with yelling. Sometimes it sounds like a phone call and ends with silence. We spend so much of our lives being taught how to make others comfortable in our presence. Lower your voice. Smile more. Don't push back. Don't be too much. But that day, I wasn't going to shrink to fit anyone else's peace of mind. I hope this reminds someone out there. You don't need to beg for access. You are the value. And when the time comes, don't ask them to let you stay. Let them feel what happens when you leave. The post didn't ask for sympathy. It didn't beg for understanding. It made people sit with a question. How many Everetts had been walked off planes in silence, without a platform, without the money, without the proof? And what would have happened if they hadn't been so easy to ignore? Everett didn't need to be a martyr. He didn't need to go viral. He just needed the next person who found themselves in his shoes to know that quiet strength can still flip the world upside down. Sometimes, the loudest power comes from walking away and making sure the world sees who let you go. If you've ever been overlooked, mistreated, or made to feel small in a space you had every right to be in, remember this. Your presence is the power. Don't shrink. Don't wait for permission to matter. And when someone tries to strip away your dignity, don't just speak up. Move in a way they can't ignore. Share this story. Talk about it. Use it. Not for sympathy, but for strength.